All right, CBS's hit show Watson follows a life after Sherlock Holmes and has been taking over court's TV screen.
I've been watching a lot of this man lately. We're joined by Dr. John Watson himself. Morris Chestnut looking good in that green, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You're looking good in your color as well.
Well, thank you,
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you. Okay, so as we mentioned, I've had a lot of Morris Chestnut on my screens lately. Reasonable Doubt.
What's new?
Yeah, yes.
Reasonable Doubt. Also, DR from Detroit. Love.
Yes. Thank you.
Such a great show. So now, with you doing Watson, I feel like you're doing a little bit of everything. Do you have any favorite types of roles?
You know, I think right now it's definitely Watson. I loved the Reasonable Doubt. I had a great time there. I had a great time with DR from DR. It was a fun show, DR from Detroit. But now I love doing Watson because Watson is we combine these combine the medical show with the detective show. So, you know, inside the hospital, we're doctors. Outside the hospital, we're detectives. Mm-hmm. So we're detectives, and we solve these medical mysteries. Detectives, yes, and I'm just having so much fun doing that.
Okay, so you've played a doctor a few times, Nurse Jackie, Rosewood. Now, I know you would never pretend to be a doctor in real life, but let's say you're on an airplane. There's an emergency. Somebody says, is there one trick you've learned that if pressed into action, you might be able to use to save somebody if you absolutely had to?
I would never. Oh, man. Listen, here's the interesting thing about that. Is now when I'm watching TV shows and the commercials come on and they talk about all these prescriptions and I understand sometimes what they're talking about.
I love it.
Before I had no clue what, whatever they were talking about. Now I do, but I would never do that in person. I'd be too scared. But there are some techniques. I mean, we have technical advisors on set, and we've done a couple of techniques even in this season that I've had to do that I think I probably could, but I would be too scared.
Listen, you know more than I would. So you got that. I read recently, I think it was an LA Times interview, you said that you are 56 years old, by the way, you look amazing, but that you're hitting your stride as an actor now after all these years. What do you mean by that?
So as an actor, one of our main resources is our experience, your experience through life. And the more we're fortunate to be on this planet, the more ups and downs you go through, the more experiences that I've seen things in the last, several years that I thought that I would never see, and understanding perspectives that I thought people didn't have. And so I've learned just as an actor, I have much more of a resource to draw from.
Okay, now I want to ask you about this resources thing because on the show, Watson has this team of professionals who are working with him. They're all doctors, but sometimes, as you mentioned, you guys are doing research and detectives and such. But something's been floating around in the show about Watson studying his fellow detectives. Is that happening?
Yes, it is happening. One interesting fact on the show, Watson is based on a real-life, world-renowned geneticist. And he's such an interesting when we were starting the show, every time that we Zoomed with him, he was in some remote location throughout the world. But he's the type of person that whenever he sees someone, it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, he can look at you and see a rare medical condition that you didn't even know you had.
That's crazy.
Some positive, some negative. But yes, and so matter of fact, while we were on the Zoom, he did it to our showrunner, Craig. And so that is also Watson.
Oh, no.
Watson he has this team of people around him he's also studying because he's just very intrigued and very intrigued by people and genetics.
And like the twins and wow. Okay.
Well, let's finally get HIPAA laws. What did you discover?
The twins are played by the same person, by the way.
Which is a trip. You guys do a really good job at that. Because at first I was like, are those two? Wait a minute.
Before we go, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out you're wearing green today. Your beloved Philadelphia Eagles won on Sunday. Is there a connection there?
I've just been a huge Eagle fan since I was in Pop Warner football many, many years ago. And I'm not a bandwagon. People may think I'm a bandwagon, but I went through decades of them losing and not being able to make it to the big game. And now my son, who I didn't want my son to become an Eagle fan, ended up becoming an Eagle fan. And he's been to like the last 3 Super Bowls. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh. So did you go on Sunday? Were you there?
I didn't. I'm in New York, so I wasn't able to make it. I've been here all week, but I was definitely rooting them on.
I don't doubt that.
I know that's right.
It was over early.
Well, we're
It
rooting
was
for
over
Watson.
early. That's the kind of win I like. You said you're rooting for who?
Oh, I was saying we're rooting for Watson, but I also was glad that the game was over early.
Oh.
I just needed to make sure Jalen and them.
She just wanted to see Jalen.
Jalen and them.
She just wanted to see Jalen.
Jalen and them.
Morris Chestnut, the star of Watson. The new episode's coming up on Sunday, so that's the new normal night. It's Sundays, right?
Yes, Sunday nights, yes.
All right, on CBS 13. You can stream it on Paramount Plus. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris.
stuff.
Try not to look at myself in the monitor next to him.
That green, aside from the fact that he's a beautiful man, but that green was working. Tracy.
I think, and I dare to say this, I think most colors in the spectrum would probably resonate well.
Yeah.
That was very well put.
With that hue.
Translation, he's fine.
I'd like to commend us on not objectifying him during the interview and making him uncomfortable. We waited until 0.5 seconds after it was over.
Every time I see him, I see Lance. For the best man.
I know.
Like every time I see him, I see Lance.
But do you ever go, Ricky? Ricky!